Fresh off his appearance yesterday on News Nation, the mayor of Kansas City warming up with that, joining us on KCMO in Kansas City. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the time as always.
Good to talk to you. Hope everything's going well.
Everything is going well. Hey, let's start off with that conversation you had with one of our friends here on the show, Connell McShane, who does a great job on News Nation, talking about the government shutdown, the impacts on Kansas City. As we sit here, about 8 days out from the start of November, what is the biggest concern you have when it comes to how Kansas City gets impacted by the government shutdown prolonging into next month?
You know, I think the employment aspects are going to be pretty serious. So I think you might have seen the news yesterday, up to 1,600 Honeywell employees who are out in South Kansas City working on important things, primarily connected to the Departments of Energy and the Department of Defense. I think that's going to be a real issue for us. I think the child care, something we've been talking about for a little while now, up to 2,300 children, that's just on the Missouri side, who are in Head Start affiliated programs, can find themselves without care. That impacts thousands of families. So just in listing off those numbers, not to mention the 30,000 federal employees in this city more broadly, you're going to have a real issue. And I know there are some who would say, well, we shouldn't have Head Start, even though it's been around since LBJ. We shouldn't have federal employees for the first place. Okay, set that aside for a minute. These are people who got to pay their mortgages the next week. These are people that got to pay their bills. They got to survive and they got to live, and they are playing by the rules fairly each and every day, serving their country, many of whom, I'll remind you, are veterans of the United States Armed Forces. So I think the federal government needs to get it figured out. And I will say this, I'm not big on the blame game either. But you know this, Pete, and I know this. When there's a big thing that goes on in Kansas City, people say it's the mayor's fault. And by and large, I have to answer for it. I would say the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, and the Senate Majority Leader, all of whom are the most powerful people in their respective institutions, with the President being the most powerful, should get it together, come to a solution soon, and make sure we can get our people back to work.
So how does John Thune do that when, as you well know, they got to get the 60 votes and they can't get a handful of Democrats to reopen the government at the same spending levels they've just been at for the last few months? Like, what are they supposed to negotiate right now?
You know, it is very simple negotiation, though. I mean, look, they need to figure out how to make deals. The president's the best at making deals, right? He's flying around the world talking about deals between Hamas and the Israelis, deals everywhere around the world. I think that you can figure out a deal with Chuck Schumer, something that's happened many times before. Now, I get where Senate Democrats are saying, wait, we got stung before because we passed what we thought was a budget stopgap, and the president was still finding ways to redirect funds that had already been appropriated by Congress. So the Democrats want certain guarantees that those changes won't happen again, that if there's something that is in this budget deal, it stays firm, and that you have spending levels that make sure certain programmatic efforts that have been passed by Congress survive. I think John Thune, who has been in the U.S. Senate since probably I was at least early years of college, is somebody who can get it all figured out. I think that, frankly, Democrats are ready to truly negotiate, but are going to make sure that they protect their view of the American people's interests. And, frankly, I think they're totally valid in that position.
So you think that the Democrats should hold the line right now on this?
I think the Democrats should come to a fair negotiation, good arm's length negotiation like you see with many others. But to contend that when the Republicans control the White House, are the leadership in both houses of Congress, and by the way, have a very friendly United States Supreme Court, I do not think necessarily that this is the sort of thing that should in some other way, getting chased by a dog outside now, that this is the sort of thing that they should just defer to whatever the Republicans say further. The Republicans can get this all done. I think they will, but it's going to take them doing some real work in negotiation.
So what about doing it, the old-fashioned way, which is just leave the government open and then debate all this stuff through all the appropriations bills and that process, which, of course, would be playing out right now if the government was opened up?
I think that the reason that you're not seeing that is the new trend that we're on. We've had a prior President Trump shut down during his first presidency. We're seeing it done this way now. These are certainly the tactics that Senator McConnell, when he was in Republican leadership, would use as well. We have seen in some ways a change in how we do legislative negotiations. While that perhaps is frustrating to some, I think that is something that's just a reality of modern American political life, and we can find a way to get these deals done.
Even though Senate Republicans supported a clean CR, a continuing resolution, a dozen times under Joe Biden? Now we look at it the other way, and I guess it's not good enough. I mean, that's the moral of the story here, isn't it? Like, Republicans did it for Joe Biden, and Democrats are basically saying, we're not doing it for Trump.
I don't think that's accurate at all. I think when you look at the averting of a prior shutdown, Senator Schumer, Democratic leaders in the House and Senate, all said that, frankly, they do want to find a way to get to compromise. But compromise is not total acquiescence. You have seen the White House and Republican leaders divert funds that have already been approved, threaten the survival of whole programs that have been enacted by Congress, including cabinet-level departments like the Department of Education. I think it is totally worthwhile for Democrats to say, we want to extract at least a few promises that you will follow the will of Congress in whatever budget compromise we get now. And I think that is entirely reasonable. It's the sort of thing that can get a deal done in no time.
Well, it's interesting because, what you're saying is really different from what you're hearing from national Democrats who are making it much more about Obamacare premiums and the cost of health insurance. So you're talking almost a different language than what you're hearing from Schumer and even some people locally like Congresswoman Davids. Is your approach the one you think they should be taking on the national stage? Because really what you're saying is not what they're saying, right? Is that fair?
Yeah,
I'm not hearing what you're saying from their mouth.
Yeah, obviously, I think I'm right. I think that the viewpoint is that you had some fairly tough compromises that Chuck Schumer made in the spring. I think it's fair to say that Senate Democrats and congressional Democrats more broadly believe that they got burned. So they're trying to make sure that there are real promises and concessions that are made in this one where it's not where the White House isn't going back on its word in connection with any number of the deals. Obamacare fits within my perspective because that is also something that has been passed by Congress, signed by the president, and we want to make sure that implementation and delivery of the program continues. I think we're actually singing from the same sheet of music, which is very simply to say this. We have prior laws that were passed. Budget appropriations, even if there are necessary increases, should reflect them. What we should not see is budget chicanery after Congress has approved a budget and, frankly, after laws have been passed in some situations for decades that they've been on the books. I think that's very reasonable. I think the reason you're hearing Democrats use a different language, and I'm not, I have access to some polls. I don't have access to all their polls. I do think that health care is a very persuasive argument. You hear them talking a good deal about that. You hear folks who are talking a good deal about the impact on federal workers. I think all those things are true, but I think you can be real about what it is right now. You want to make sure that promises are kept. I think that's what Democrats and Senator Schumer are fighting for. But I turn us back to this perspective. The mayor of Kansas City, as many of you know, gets blamed if something goes awry. After the Chiefs parade shooting, you asked me a bunch of questions. I didn't just get to say, well, society's really got a lot going on, and there are all these other people. And I think that's the same situation here. The president of the United States is a leader. He's written a book titled Art of the Deal. People talk about his deal-making abilities, and he has in many ways a hand-picked Speaker of the House after he threw out the prior Republican. And frankly, he didn't. Actually, he did, his allies and others. And then you have a Senate Majority Leader whom he appears to like right now. They can get this deal done, the government open, or else the people in Kansas City and in the states of Missouri and Kansas are going to continue to suffer in greater and greater numbers as the weeks go by.
Well, we will see. It will be interesting to see the next week or so, maybe more than that, how it plays out, and also what the polling shows in terms of who ultimately will get blamed. And we don't know the answer to that. We'll know it, of course, I'm sure, in the days and weeks to come. Mayor Quinton Lucas is joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. Tomorrow in Kansas City, the streetcar extension will, of course, open up. What do you hope this does for Kansas City broadly?
It's going to increase density. It's going to increase population in neighborhoods that need more population. In the mid-1950s, about 73,000 people lived in Midtown Kansas City. Today, it's close to about 29,000. We are going to see more people coming down to Midtown and downtown, frankly. You're going to see better connections. You're going to see more young people staying, so your children in mind, when they're getting out of school, have a choice of having Kansas City be this dynamic, incredible city for them to live in, even before they have children and settle down. I think that's what you're about to see. And by the way, this is where I'll give credit to folks. This is one of the most bipartisan projects in all of America. Started during the Obama administration, huge grants during the first Trump administration, continues through Biden, opening under Trump. We would have actually a federal administrator here with us if the government were not shut down. It's too bad for that, but nonetheless, we're going to be excited to celebrate this good bipartisan accomplishment in the heart of Kansas City. And another acknowledgement that in cities, things get done. We don't get to be paralyzed like Congress and like Washington. We get things done. This is a great feat for Kansas City. I expect even more. And one of these days, we'll even have real stadium news to break for you in terms of getting deals done on that, which I hope at least for baseball is along the streetcar line.
I wasn't even going to bring up that whole thing, but are we saying that there's something coming down the pipeline here in the not too distant future potentially?
I'm quoting the paper today as saying that in Kansas City, unlike some others, we're professionals and we're going to negotiate professionally, not necessarily in the press. So I'll leave it to my good friend running for governor of Kansas on the Republican side to add some puffery to the chat and all the others that are doing videos and releases. For now, I'm just going to say we'll keep talking and we'll make sure, Pete, you're one of the first people to know when there is real news, not just news about potential news around the way.
All right. Well, we're not dotting any I's and crossing any T's here on any deals, unlike some people down the dial. Take me through then, speaking of sports, I know the Big 12 Media Days were this week in Kansas City. That tournament is in Kansas City through 2031. You talked to the commissioner there, Brett Yormark. What do you think the future of this basketball conference in this city will be beyond the media days and the tournament? What does that look like between this league and this city?
I think, first of all, college sports, and we could have a whole long chat on that, the future of college sports, does the NCAA survive, et cetera. I think regardless, the conferences do. You're seeing different ways of adapting, private equity investments in the Big Ten, the SEC, frankly, demolishing everyone on television ratings every Saturday. I mean, it's an interesting time. I think the Big 12, as it enhances its football brand, has an exceptional basketball brand, and in many ways, the best postseason tournament in the country. Kansas City is the type of unique market that gets that sort of energy and interest for the Big 12 tournament in ways that a Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, heck, I guess they're everywhere now. Phoenix probably doesn't. So we'll fight mightily to continue to host the Big 12 men's and women's tournaments. I think you'll expect us to see more investment on the women's side, trying to get more butts in the seats, more investment, more sponsors. That's something that Commissioner Yormark and I have worked a lot on, as you're seeing, frankly, just more money, more eyeballs on women's sports. And ultimately, I think this is going to be Kansas City's tournament for the long haul, but it's going to require us to spend some more money. Look for further appropriations to support the T-Mobile Center. Look for that TNT kind of subleasing contract that the Big 12 has right now in football to be a little bit more dynamic even in the basketball season. You'll see Kansas featured there and others. And I expect us to continue to host this tournament for a long time. But I'm excited about the future of college sports. More people are watching. More is booming. Sports are key entertainment. That's why we talk about investing in them. And Big 12 is like having another professional team here in Kansas City. We're excited to have them.
So are there short-term upgrades you're talking about at T-Mobile that could be coming soon?
There's a chat of about $12 million and some more short-term upgrades. Some of those are more basics. Others are kind of that fan experience. You do want to have more places where you can monetize the facility further, so that's one part of it. I continue to stay bullish on Municipal Auditorium, the music hall. We've got to if we're going to keep that facility up, and it's hosted however many Final Fours and all of that, a big investment in that, more than $50 to $75 million range, gives you the opportunity to move the women's tournament back there in a unique, outstanding, glory, historic facility, which is something that I think we should look at, particularly following the success of CPKC Stadium, women's soccer being right-sized. That's kind of a longer-term perspective, but something that we're very interested in working on in Kansas City.
All right. Mayor Lucas on KCMO. Hey, last thing for you, Mr. Mayor. Every Sunday I get a copy of your schedule for the upcoming week, and this is now the second or third time I've seen this where your schedule people always put when you're going on other radio shows, lowly rated national panhandler radio shows, and you never give a shout out to KCMO on the Thursday morning itinerary. And I've had enough of this. So please pass it on to the schedulers to stop promoting other radio shows when all the news you make comes out of this radio show. Let's be honest.
You know what? You were right. We have broken a lot of, I think it's almost every week. I was even quoted in something this week, and they're like, he said on radio. Sometimes they don't even really give you credit, but we will make sure we incorporate that suggestion into the future schedules so that everybody knows where news happens on KCMO Talk Radio.
That's all I'm asking for. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great week.
We'll see you.